Hi, I'm Jim Ellison. I'm head of the technical and the educational departments here at Sterngold. Today I'd like to talk to you about the Stern Snap abutments. Now there are two styles of Stern Snap. One is the 0 degree one-piece abutment that screws directly into many implants. The other is an angle correction Stern Snap. That is a two-piece abutment. The first part is the abutment base, and the second is the Stern Snap attachment, which screws into the base. First, I'd like to talk to you about the 0 degree version. If the total divergence of the implants is less than 24 degrees, or less than 12 degrees on any one implant, from the desired path of insertion of the prosthesis, the straight Stern Snap abutments may be used. They are made to fit into more than 180 different implants, and they come in various tissue cuff heights. Here we have two of the straight Stern Snap abutments. Now, this part, of course, would be unique to each implant into which they will be inserted. The tissue cuff height is here. This one happens to be 3 millimeters. This one is 2 millimeters. These are made of titanium alloy, and the gold color is titanium nitride. Now you'll notice that the end here, these are driven with a 50 thousandths hex driver, which is what I'm pointing with. And it's going to drive these directly into the implant. So screw the one-piece abutments onto each implant. You tighten the abutments to 20 Newton centimeters, but first we're going to use this 50 thousandths hex driver. This is a thumb knob, which makes it a hand driver, and we're going to tighten that in until it's snug. Then we'll remove the thumb knob, and I'll replace that with a torque wrench, which will seat back in there. Now I can torque this to 20 Newton centimeters, right there. If the total divergence of the implants is greater than 24 degrees, the angle correction Stern Snap attachments must be used. Now, each angle correction Stern Snap attachment will correct up to and including 17 degrees of divergence. Therefore, that's a maximum of 34 degrees between two implants. Now, actually, you get a little more than that because of the flexibility of the caps that are in the overdenture. Therefore, we are up to about 60 degrees of divergence between two implants. In order to better understand this attachment, it's a good idea to take a look at the parts that make up this system. The first part of this two-part abutment is the abutment base. This portion of it, the screw threads and the contours, is unique to each implant. In other words, this is different for all of the 180 or more implants into which this will screw. So, this part screws into the implant. From here up, this is the tissue cuff area. That comes in various heights depending on the implant. This is driven, as you can see, with a flat bladed driver that fits into the abutment. And if I take that off, see, it's the thumb knob that I took off allows this to be driven with any torque wrench that takes 4 millimeters square tool. So you can use a thumb knob or a torque wrench. Now if I take that out, you may be able to see that slot in here, and this is a hemisphere. In other words, it's part of a circle. And that's why we can pivot the attachment so that it will provide us angle correction. And the next part is the actual stern snap attachment. It's basically a circle. These are made of titanium alloy, and the gold color is titanium nitride. Now, there's a hole in the side. It's actually, we'll see, it's going to be assembled with this screw eventually. I'll show you how that's done in a minute. But for the moment, I'm going to use that just as a tool to turn it over so that you can see that there's not just a screw hole through here, there's actually a slot. So this pivots on the hemispherical surface of the abutment base. Now, as I say, when we assemble it, we're going to assemble it with this, is actually called the handle, that goes into that side screw. And the last, well, not the next to the last part, is we're going to have this white plastic alignment handle that will help us to see the angle. But through that, this is the screw that we use. Now, this is a 50 thousandths hex driver that the screw is on. One thing you'll note is that this is a very fine thread. The threads are close together. Therefore, we have to be careful. It's fairly easy to cross-thread this. So we're going to assemble it. So let me just move these parts aside. This has the stern snap attachment with the screw inserted and the handle coming in the side. This handle is how we're going to maneuver this around. It's kind of like, if you were steering a boat, it'd be the tiller on the boat. You'll notice that the screw slides in that slot, and we'll see how that works as we assemble this together. So what you're going to actually receive when it comes out of the package is this. In other words, we have the handle screwed into the side. And by the way, this is not something you want to unscrew and screw back on a lot of times. Once or twice is okay, but this is a rather shallow hole with, once again, some fine threads. So it's meant really to just be used this one time or maybe a second time if you have to put it back. But here, once again, we can see the screw maneuvers in that slot, and we assemble the alignment, the white plastic alignment post on top of this to show us which way the attachment is going to be positioned. Now, into this implant, I have screwed the 0-degree stern snap abutment. These are usually sold as a one-piece abutment with different tissue cuff heights, and of course specific to this particular implant. Now this, as you can see, is lined up rather nicely with the path of insertion we'd like for this overdenture. So I'm going to obviously call that 0-degree. I'm going to snap on one of the white alignment handles so that I can use that as my reference for lining up the next abutment. So here I have placed the SFI abutment, proper tissue cuff height. We tightened it with that slotted driver to 30 Newton centimeters, assuming this was the mouth. Now we're going to take our stern snap attachment, the angle correction one, and I've seated the 50 thousandths hex driver into the head of the screw. You see I can kind of move that in the slot. What we're going to do is this, of course, has to be lined up. This implant has a little mesial tilt. It has to be lined up with the implant and the abutment so it goes straight down in. So we're not putting this at an angle, we have to put that in straight. Now, as I mentioned, this is a rather fine thread. We're used to using medium threads in dentistry, but this being a fine thread, if you feel any resistance, you'd want to back off and start again because you might have cross-threaded it. But when I get it in part of the way, you can see that, like, that's a little snug, but I'll loosen it a little bit. I can move this. I can move it through, well, all the way around 360 degrees. I can move it up and down to gain that 17 degrees off angle. So what I'm going to do is look down at this, move it around, and I'm going to snug this up so that it's close. These don't have to be perfectly parallel, but close. Now what I'll do is take out, and as you can see, when I take the thumb knob off, this hex driver also is driven with any torque wrench that would accept a 4mm square tool. So if I take this out and I look at it in two planes, you can see that it looks good this way, and then I look at it this way, and yes, it looks good that way as well. So that would be good for the angle correction of that abutment. Now, it's only hand tightened at this point. So what I have to do is pop off gently the white handle and set it aside. Put our 50 thousandths hex driver back here to the screw. And now I'm going to use turn it sideways. I'm going to use a torque wrench. This is one of a number of different styles of torque wrench. Let me put that in first. There we go. Get it into. Now what I'm going to do is hold onto this handle and then torque it to 20 Newton centimeters. Back on these ratchets a little bit. Yeah, now holding the handle, there we go, that's 20. So we've now tightened that up, and now we're all set. And I can unscrew this little handle, and now we have the two of them parallel with each other, and we can now continue with the steps of processing the caps into the denture. I have placed these white blockout spacers to be sure that the pickup material we're going to use doesn't get in and touch any of the abutment. Place a stern snap retention cap on each of the attachments. You'll notice we have three colors. The yellow is the lowest level of retention, about 1 pound. That would be used if you have a lot of attachments or if the patient's manual dexterity is compromised. The green attachments are the normal retention level that you would use. They provide about 2 pounds of retention. The brown is the strongest, and it provides about 3 pounds of retention. You can see that we've created recesses in the denture that will go over each of the attachments. Inside of those recesses, we created mechanical undercuts. The next step will be to use some of the SternVantage varnish to prime the denture. Now, you can use just the easy pickup without the varnish. However, with any of these composite materials, you won't get chemical bonding unless you use the varnish. After the SternVantage varnish is applied into each recess, we light cure for about 60 seconds. We're using our easy pickup bisacryl composite material to pick up these attachments. Once you've squeezed a little bit on the top and sides of each of the retention caps, now you've got about 45 seconds to complete this whole procedure. This is a self-cure material. What you're going to do then is fill, not completely, but almost completely, each of the recesses in the denture. And then we'll seat the denture passively. Now it's important that we don't displace the tissue if you're doing a chairside pickup. So we have to be sure. It's usually better if the doctor holds the denture with his or her fingers. Well, to recap, you have about 45 seconds of working time to get the denture seated. At the 3-minute mark, it enters the rubbery phase. Now, you could take it out at that point, but a complete set will be in about 6 minutes in the mouth. So if you're certain of your block out, better to wait the full length of time. You can fill in any defects with a little more easy pickup. If any of the easy pickup gets onto the unvarnished areas, those can easily be flicked off with any small tool. The stern snap retention caps can easily be changed when needed. This double-ended tool is used to this end to remove the old males. It has a longer neck and a sharp edge. The other end is a little shorter and has a rounded end, and that's the insertion end of the tool. So to remove the old one, we merely put the removal part, push it straight in to the retention cap and pull it straight out. Now, to put a new one in, we'll get a new brown male in this case, put it on the end of the tool and snap it in place. That's all there is to it. And we can seat our newly retained stern snap overdenture. Well, those are the steps for the stern snap 0-degree abutments and for the angle correction stern snap attachments. If you'd like more information on these, you can go to sterngold.com, or you can call our toll-free number at 800-243-9942.